If what I'm about to say makes your chest tighten, that's not fear, that's recognition. There are patterns you've sensed in relationships but were never taught how to name. And today, I'm going to say the quiet part out loud. Before we go any further, subscribe to this channel and like this video, because what we talk about here doesn't just change how you see women, it changes how you see yourself. I'm speaking to you as a psychologist, but also as a woman who has sat across from hundreds of men who all ask the same question in different ways. Why does this feel familiar, even when she's new? The answer isn't about judgment. It's about experience shaping behavior, not morality shaping worth. And if you listen carefully, you'll stop blaming yourself for things that were never about you. When a woman has lived through many romantic chapters, it doesn't show up as stories she tells. It shows up as instincts. Her nervous system has learned patterns faster than her conscious mind. She anticipates outcomes before you finish sentences. She reads shifts in tone like weather changes. That doesn't make her dangerous, it makes her trained. Men often think experience shows itself through confidence or boldness, but that's surface level. What really reveals it is emotional efficiency. She knows which conversations lead nowhere. She doesn't linger in uncertainty. She exits mentally long before she leaves physically. And if you've ever felt like you were trying to catch up emotionally while she was already 10 steps ahead, that feeling wasn't accidental. Here's the truth most men never hear. Repeated emotional bonding and separation doesn't harden the heart. It refines it. It creates shortcuts. She knows how attachment begins, how it peaks, and how it dissolves. So she moves through connection with less hesitation and less illusion. To an untrained eye, this can feel like mystery or distance. To a trained one, it's pattern recognition. This video is not about labeling women. It's about helping you stop misinterpreting signals. When you misunderstand experience as indifference, you react with insecurity. When you mistake emotional fluency for manipulation, you close off. My role here is to give you clarity without bitterness, awareness without resentment, and strength without contempt. Because the man who understands psychology doesn't fear it. He leads with it. One of the first signs men feel but rarely identify is how quickly she becomes comfortable with emotional intimacy and how quickly she can detach from it. This isn't about coldness, it's about familiarity. When someone has navigated many romantic dynamics, emotional closeness stops feeling rare and starts feeling navigable. She knows how to open conversations that feel deep, how to mirror vulnerability, how to create connection fast. And just as importantly, she knows how to step back without chaos when something no longer serves her. To a man who bonds slowly and deeply, this can feel unsettling. You might feel special early on, then confused when the intensity levels out. What's happening isn't deception, it's calibration. Her system doesn't spike the way yours does because it's been there before. She isn't overwhelmed by closeness, and she isn't frightened by distance. That emotional regulation often gets misread as lack of interest, when in reality it's emotional competence. Another pattern shows up in how she communicates boundaries. She doesn't negotiate them endlessly. She states them clearly, sometimes quietly, and then watches what you do. Men who aren't used to this often talk more, explain more, promise more. She listens less to words and more to consistency. This can feel intimidating, especially if you're used to winning affection through effort alone. But experience teaches a woman that effort without alignment leads to exhaustion. You may also notice she doesn't idealize you early. Compliments are measured. Praise is specific, not inflated. She sees you as you are, not as potential. This is one of the hardest things for men to accept, because many are used to being projected onto rather than observed. When a woman has loved before, deeply, repeatedly, she learns the cost of fantasy, so she chooses realism instead. Here's where many men get it wrong. They assume this means she's comparing them to others. In most cases, she's not. She's comparing the present moment to her own internal standards. Standards shaped by what worked, what failed, and what hurt. That can feel like pressure, but it's actually clarity. You're not being measured against other men. You're being measured against patterns she refuses to repeat. This is why some men feel simultaneously respected and slightly uneasy around her. She's present, engaged, even warm, but she's not lost. And the truth is, she doesn't need to be. Emotional experience doesn't make someone incapable of love. It makes them unwilling to gamble it blindly. And that's not a flaw. It's wisdom, earned the hard way. Another behavior men often feel before they understand is how little she chases reassurance. She doesn't ask where this is going every week. She doesn't fish for validation or panic in silence. That calm isn't indifference. It's self-trust, built through repetition. When someone has seen attraction rise and fall many times, they stop clinging to certainty. They know that forcing clarity too early only creates false safety. You may notice she lets things unfold without gripping them. If you pull back, she doesn't collapse. If you test boundaries, she doesn't overreact. This can trigger a man's deepest insecurity because many men learned that love equals pursuit. When pursuit isn't required, they feel replaceable. But emotional composure is not emotional absence. It's simply the absence of fear. Pay attention to how she responds to conflict. She doesn't explode, but she doesn't plead either. She addresses the issue, states how it affects her, and then goes quiet. That silence isn't punishment, it's assessment. Experience teaches a woman that how a man responds under emotional pressure tells her more than months of romance. She's not trying to win the argument, she's watching who you become inside it. There's also a noticeable lack of urgency around exclusivity, not because she doesn't value commitment, but because she understands timing. Rushing labels doesn't create loyalty, behavior does. Men who confuse speed with seriousness often feel disoriented here. They think, if she cared more, she'd want this locked down. What they miss is that she's already evaluating long-term viability through actions, not promises. You might also feel that she doesn't try to impress you. No performance, no over-explaining, no strategic self-presentation. That's because experience strips away the need to audition. She's already seen what happens when someone pretends to be more agreeable, more flexible, more accommodating than they really are. So she shows up as she is, knowing that compatibility reveals itself faster without masks. This is where immature men feel bored or challenged, while grounded men feel intrigued, because there's no chase to win, only presence to maintain. She isn't asking you to prove your worth. She's observing whether you have one independent of her reaction. And that can feel uncomfortable if you've built your confidence on external validation. Understand this. When a woman has lived through many emotional connections, she stops attaching her identity to outcomes. She doesn't need you to choose her to feel chosen. She already knows who she is without being desired, and the man who can meet her there, without trying to dominate, impress, or retreat, becomes rare in her eyes. Not because he conquered her, but because he didn't need to. You may also notice how selective she is with her emotional energy. She listens, but she doesn't absorb everything. She cares, but she doesn't carry burdens that aren't hers. Men sometimes mistake this for selfishness, but it's actually discernment. Experience teaches a woman that not every problem is a project, and not every man who vents is asking for partnership. She has learned where empathy ends and self-respect begins. Watch how she reacts to inconsistency. She doesn't argue about it for long. She notices it, adjusts internally, and pulls her expectations back. That quiet shift is often missed until it's too late. Men think the danger moment is the fight, but for an experienced woman, the decision happens long before confrontation. When behavior and words don't align, she doesn't chase alignment, she protects herself. There's also a subtle confidence in how she handles attention. She doesn't get overly flattered, and she doesn't punish you for noticing others. She understands attraction as a human constant, not a threat. That perspective comes from exposure. When someone has been desired many times, attention loses its power to control them. What matters instead is character, consistency, and emotional safety. This can make some men uneasy because they're used to leverage. They're used to affection being something that can be gained or lost through strategy. With her, that leverage doesn't exist. You can't provoke jealousy to get a reaction. You can't withdraw to create panic. Emotional games fall flat, not because she doesn't feel, but because she's seen the ending before. Another thing men often sense is that she doesn't revolve her life around dating. Her routines are intact, her friendships are steady, her sense of self doesn't dissolve into romance. That stability isn't accidental. It's built from learning what happens when you overinvest too early, when you abandon yourself for connection. She's already paid that price. This is where many men misinterpret independence as lack of need. The truth is more nuanced. She wants connection, but not at the cost of her center. She wants partnership, not rescue or completion. And that distinction matters, because when a woman no longer needs a relationship to define her, she chooses differently. If you've ever felt like you couldn't rush her, sway her, or destabilize her emotionally, that's not because she's closed, it's because she's regulated. Emotional regulation is often mistaken for emotional distance by those who haven't developed it themselves. But to the right man, it feels like peace. And here's the uncomfortable truth. She's not hard to love. She's hard to manipulate. There's a difference. There's a moment many men describe but struggle to articulate. The feeling that she's evaluating without interrogating. She asks fewer questions than you expect, yet she seems to understand you more clearly than women who asked everything. That's because experience teaches pattern recognition. She's listening for emotional consistency, not impressive stories. She watches how you treat waiters, how you handle frustration, how you speak about people who aren't present. Those details tell her more than any confession ever could. You may also notice that she doesn't rush to fix you. She doesn't try to mold you into a better version of yourself. That's not because she lacks care, but because she understands something many don't. People only change when they decide to. After witnessing enough cycles of potential and disappointment, she stops investing in who someone could be. She chooses based on who they already are. This can feel confronting to men who are used to being encouraged, coached, or emotionally carried. With her, responsibility stays where it belongs. Your growth is yours. Your healing is yours. She can support you, but she won't parent you. And for men who are ready, this feels respectful. For men who aren't, it feels cold. There's also a noticeable honesty in how she speaks about the future. No grand fantasies, no dramatic promises. She talks in possibilities, not guarantees. That grounded language comes from understanding how unpredictable relationships can be, no matter how strong the chemistry. She's learned that overpromising creates false bonds, and false bonds create real pain. Another subtle sign is how she responds when you disappoint her. She doesn't catastrophize, but she doesn't ignore it either. She adjusts how much access you have to her emotionally. That adjustment is quiet, almost invisible, and it's where many men lose their footing. They don't realize trust is being recalibrated in real time, not punished, measured. Men sometimes interpret this as emotional withdrawal, when in reality it's emotional accuracy. She's responding to data, not fear, and that's unsettling for someone who relies on emotional volatility to feel important. With her, consistency is the currency. Here's what matters most. None of this means she's incapable of deep attachment. It means she attaches with awareness. When she chooses someone, it's not because she's swept away, it's because she's decided. And that decision carries weight because it's informed. The tragedy is that some men walk away thinking she was distant, when in truth, she was discerning. The opportunity is that the man who understands this doesn't try to rush her heart. He earns her trust. And when an experienced woman gives trust, it's not reckless, it's intentional. Here is the final truth I want you to sit with, not react to. A woman who has lived, loved, and learned deeply isn't dangerous to you. She's revealing. She exposes where you're grounded and where you're performing. Around her, your strategies stop working, and your character starts speaking. That's why some men feel unsettled, even when nothing is wrong. If you've ever felt like you couldn't hide behind charm, intensity, or mystery with her, that wasn't a loss of power. It was an invitation to be real. Experience doesn't make her incapable of bonding. It makes her allergic to illusion. And illusion is comfortable for people who haven't yet built substance. The most important thing to understand is this. Her past isn't the point. Her patterns are. And patterns aren't accusations. They're information. When men fixate on numbers, comparisons, or imagined competition, they miss the deeper opportunity. She's showing you how emotional maturity actually functions in real time. You don't win her by being perfect. You don't keep her by being dominant. You connect with her by being consistent, emotionally present, and self-led. That's it. No performance, no pressure, no games, just alignment. And for men who have done the work, that feels grounding, not threatening. Some men will hear this video and feel defensive. Others will feel relieved. The difference between those reactions has nothing to do with her. It has everything to do with where you are in your own development. Emotional experience in a woman doesn't diminish your role as a man. It clarifies it. If you want a woman who depends on you to feel stable, this perspective will feel uncomfortable. If you want a woman who chooses you because she's already stable, it will feel empowering. One dynamic is built on need. The other is built on respect. And here's the part few people say out loud. A woman who has been through enough doesn't fall in love easily. But when she does, she stays present. She doesn't disappear into fantasy or lose herself in attachment. She builds. She shows up. She invests with her eyes open. So the real question isn't whether she's been with many men. The real question is whether you're ready to be with a woman who sees clearly. Because clarity doesn't destroy connection, it demands depth. If this resonated, sit with it. Let it sharpen you, not harden you. And remember, the men who grow are never threatened by understanding.